Welcome to the Dr. Diane Show, where we explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. With over 20 years of expertise as a mindset warrior, perspective shifter, and unshakable optimist, I am dedicated to helping you reach your wildest dreams in business, health, performance, and relationships. Learn about the power of thought and how it shapes your life to take risks, change careers, find love, go on adventures, and live passionately with me, Dr. Diane. Get ready for revolutionary ways of thinking, being, and creating an amazing life. The Dr. Diane Show starts now. Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Diane Hayden, and you are listening to the Dr. Diane Show on Transformation Talk Radio. Stay with us for the next hour, where we will explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul. Each time on the Dr. Diane Show, we have experts from around the country discussing cutting-edge topics on longevity medicine, natural health, spirituality, mindset, and soul purpose to help you shift your perspective and become a mindset warrior like me. I'm excited today to have Carolyn Coleridge as my guest. She is a licensed psychotherapist and an intuitive and healer with 29 years of experience. Carolyn is licensed in California and Connecticut. She has appeared on CNN International demonstrating energy healing and appeared on the USA Network. Carolyn was a former faculty member of the Pediatric Pain Program at UCLA, a complementary alternative medicine program where she was a Reiki master. She has taught spirituality and mental health in a major HMO in California, helping people to find their soul purpose. She is also a meditation teacher on Insight Timer app. She is a clairvoyant and hears messages from spirit. Carolyn has written 3 books, Honor Your Spirit, Soul Wisdom, and the Workbook, and How to Work with the Universe. She is a meditation, mindfulness teacher, and has just opened Conscious Creations Meditation and Healing Center in Bloomfield, Connecticut, where she sells crystals and New Age books and teaches metaphysical classes, including intuitive development classes. You can find her at www.intuitivesoulhealing.com. And welcome, Carolyn. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks. That was a great introduction.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, you've been everywhere.
I have done a lot.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So I usually like to start these shows by just learning a little bit more about your journey, especially your background, because I think listeners will find it very fascinating that you come from a psychotherapy background, but you're also doing all of this work in healing and meditation and mindfulness. So kind of how did that journey take you to that?
Yeah, so I grew up in a very spiritual family. I actually grew up in Connecticut, and my father was a minister, an Episcopal minister. My mother was a chemist and a social worker. My mother was a chemistry teacher, and my mother had mediumship abilities her whole life. So she would hear messages from relatives and have different, experiences happen with her. But she had a master's from Columbia, a very strong scientific background. My mother had a dream that my father would be the first Black bishop of Connecticut. She goes, "You should run." And he was in a smaller, poor church in Bridgeport. And he goes, "I'm in Fairfield County. I don't know." And she goes, "No, you're going to win." So then Southport knocked on his door and said, Southport, Trinity College, Trinity, Southport, some people there and said, "We really want to sponsor you to become the bishop." And he's like, "Okay, that's what my wife said." So he ran, and he's in Wikipedia now. He's the first Black Bishop of Connecticut, the third in the country. And that was everything happened through trusting God, trusting spirit. So I'm very much into not just a traditional religion, but spirit. So my mother's mediumship ability pulled me into that kind of world of understanding how do spirits come to you. Connecticut is known for ghosts, and because a lot of the paranormal shows are done in Connecticut, and they've had a ghost experiences where we had a ghost in our house. My mother's like, "The ghost is still here." My father's like, "Okay, let me pull out the Bible and read the 23rd Psalm." Though you
Right.
walk through the valley, she's like, "He's not gone." Let me read some more. It's not gone. Oh, there it's gone. It's gone now, Dad. Yeah, Clarence. So, it's kind of hilarious to both. So then later in life, I never thought I was that intuitive. I knew I felt things but just sensitive. I was studying at Columbia to get my master's, and I just started seeing ghosts out of the blue. I'd wake up and I would see them. Now, 28 was right before, after 27, which is your lunar return, and 29, before 29.5, which is your Saturn return. And there are soul cycles in our lives that I feel we're in school. And what happens is that we have to learn and grow and we get tested. So a lot of our spiritual growth goes in 7-year cycles. So a 7-year-old is more connected to this earth plane than the other side. They're not as cute and cuddly. They have more of their personality. 7 more years later, you're 14, and that's high school. Another marker, 7 more years is 21, and you become an adult. But when the clock strikes 12 and you're at 28, that's the beginning of your Saturn return. The planet Saturn comes in, and it's the planet of the taskmaster. It's a planet of maturity and life lessons. So everything you're supposed to do and learn is going to come up and look at full time, really, really close and center. And you have to go with your heart and not with your mind. So at 28, when I started seeing ghosts, I was, a little nervous and terrified because they were, just like I see you. It was like a person just sitting on the bed chatting. I saw the three muses. I saw this Asian man floating in my room. I'm up in Harlem and I wake up and I see physical people in my room. That's where Columbia is. And I was just like, this is really scary. So I called my mom, who was a medium. So, mom, I'm seeing ghosts. Like, I am terrified. She's like, oh, okay. How are your grades?
How funny.
She
What's
totally
going on with
normalized.
you?
I know. And she's like, Columbia's very expensive. So how are your grades? And I said, Mom, they're driving. She's like, oh my God, they're just ghosts. They're just people from the other side. I've seen them my whole life. Okay. She's a scientist. Makes me feel like I'm not losing my mind. They kept coming and coming. And I was just like, this is weird. And some of them were talking to me like afterlife therapy, I called it. I'm studying at a most conservative school. And once I opened up that world, I would sit with my clients as an intern and I was at Sloan Kettering and I started to see colors around people. And then I would hear messages and I was like, what is going on? So I called my mom again. I said, Mom, it's getting worse. And she goes, Ma, to my grandmother. She goes, guess what? What? She's like us. Oh, and she's like, how are her grades? So it just normalizes. So then I sought out a spiritualist church. They had like a book like a Natural Nutmeg, like you just look through and find all these healers and practitioners in New York City. I went to the Open Center and I went to a spiritualist church. I studied at Edgar Casey Institute, and it was
Really?
really,
Wow.
yeah, in New York. There's a section in New
Yeah, I'm
York.
a huge follower of him. That's fascinating.
Oh yeah, and it actually helped me to read really well. I read off of voice and like channel energy, and it was a great experience. And then by the end of the training, they said, you could be one of the readers here, and I was like, a deer in the headlights, like me. I'm studying to be a therapist, and so I did. I did like an event, a little event or two, and it was a great space because New York City is a really good place to learn how to open up because it's so dense. The energy is so direct and it's so hardcore that you're either really good or you're really not. And I kept saying to the universe, and this is how I started working with universal knowledge because I didn't understand why it was happening. I was reading Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life. And I said, why is this happening? Why? Why? Let me ask the universe. So I asked, and I would go out with my friend. We were walking around Manhattan doing our tasks. And people come up to me and say, "Oh, excuse me, do you know where 34th Street or, Chinatown is or the World Trade Center?" And I'm like, "Okay, is this, that?" Next week, there was 7 people. Next week, it was 10. The next week, it was like 12 people coming up to me saying, do you know how to get here? Do you know what this is? And here I am with my friend, Barbara, Barbara, who is this like, Jewish girl, this beautiful blonde hair. And they're coming up to me in New York City where people are scared. They're like coming up to me. She's like, is this weird? And I said, and we both looked at each other and I said, why are they people keep coming? One weekend was 18 people. And I said,
Wow.
she goes, this is weird. She goes, this is really weird. She was kind of into it too. And then we both looked at each other. I said, oh my God, I asked the universe, and I'm helping people find direction.
Ooh,
After I got the
wow.
message, not many people came up. I was back to normal. It was getting stronger and stronger. And then I realized that there was a universal dialogue coming on back and forth, like the waves that you ask, you'll always get a message, and then you have to take action. I call it AAA. Ask, you always get an answer. You got to take action. So that's how it really started. And I just kept asking, different things and having different experiences with the universe in New York City. Like, for example, sometimes I'd be overwhelmed. I was doing a 16-month program. I had to work and I had to go for internship and I had to study and I was doing well and I was really good at the therapy stuff. My father's a therapist, LCSW too. And it was very second nature for me. But I would use my intuitive gifts. I was, a little bit. I mean, I was trained traditionally, so I always had to kind of hide. And I would just keep, sometimes I get overwhelmed and say, gosh, this was so much work. And, I would be kind of, complaining and, being like kind of a brat, da 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 da. And here I am at Columbia. My parents are helping me get through it. My mother went, so she said, if you get in, I'll help you pay, which was nice because she said you should go.
Oh,
Yeah. So, because social workers don't generally make a lot of money, and I didn't want those loans. So she goes, I'll
right.
help you. So then, every time I would be, like complaining and just being insincere and not gracious, not in gratitude, I would always see a blind person in New York City, with, how those cabs are like flying by you, they almost hit you half the time, and getting on subways with their cane going back and forth. I saw at least 25 blind people. And then I was like, that takes a lot of courage. And I heard my guidance say, walk by faith and not by sight.
Mm.
And also the fact that they were able to live in such a dense, difficult, love New York City. So glad I lived there for 8 years. Great experience, but get around and trust people that they
Yeah.
couldn't see. You need your senses. So it humbled me. And part of spiritual growth is humbleness and humility. And it would always be walk by faith and not by sight. And I kept seeing, and then I would start complaining, and there it was. And I was like, who's sending these people? The universe was speaking to me. There was a dialogue. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I mean, you could have just ignored that and just gone down this very narrow, traditional path of LCSW psychotherapy and just kind of been like, no, I'm not listening to that. I'm not listening to that. But you kept getting some pretty strong messages.
Yeah, and I felt so drawn into it, and I realized that at 28, I ended up turning 29 then, is that's your destiny. That's when your soul contracts come in really strong. So if you go with your heart, it usually gets better. And I think of the 27 Club, of all those rockers who died at age 27, like Kurt Cobain and Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix, Amy Winehouse. And I was like, why are they all dying at 27? And 27 is actually the lunar return. So that is a preceptor before you go into the Saturn return. These deep stuff comes up, like in the tarot deck, the moon card, what's buried, what's underneath. So if I went with my heart, I loved reading the books about, crystals and, Egypt and Giza and essential oils. And I love that stuff. It just fed my soul. And I can't even think of the name of the bookstore. It's a bookstore on Fifth Avenue. It's gone now. But I would go there all the time besides the open center and just, absorb the books because I loved it so much. And, and it was just like wonderful. And I said, how can I make both? And then I ended up working, one of the jobs I worked at was I ended up on Wall Street of all places. I'd worked on the Hill years ago for a year, and the woman who hired me, she really liked the fact that she just liked me. I was the youngest person they hired. It was an EAP, Employee Assistance Program. She was an older Jewish woman, gay woman on Wall Street, and it was her company. And I would tell her all my theories. She goes, yeah, yeah, yeah. You're very intuitive. I trust your gut, and I want you to bring that light. And I was like, light? What? And she goes, you don't know about your energy? And then I started to look into Reiki and stuff. So here
Wow.
we are at conservative Wall Street, and I get somebody who's like, we found out later that she would get her companies like Smith Barney, Skadden Arps, all these big, Chase, all these big, huge companies through visions. And it
Wow.
was just weird. Yeah. I mean, what are the
Yeah.
chances the universe put me there?
Well,
And
of course, there's no coincidence.
no, no.
I want to go back to the age 27 before we have to take a quick break quickly, because I have an interesting story. So when I was 27, my father passed away, and it
Mm,
was very like sudden and unexpected. I mean, he had been sick in terms of just not being healthy from diabetes for many years. Well, since he was a child, he had type 1. So I
Mhm.
kind of always knew that he wasn't going to live a long life, but still, whenever a parent passes, you can never be prepared for it at any time. But it was interesting because I was just about to go, I was between my master's program and I had applied to a doctoral program, and it was like, it was April, it was right between finishing one school and going to a next. And I had decided I was going to go to Florida State. And then this happened, and I ended up changing my whole career focus to go to University of Maryland. And it's
Mhm.
so interesting because I remember, there were a lot of things that came up when I was at Maryland that I realized that was the place that I was supposed to be. And I'm just like connecting the dots, like, age
Mhm.
27, like then this, traumatic thing happens to me, and I make this decision that I probably would not have done if that didn't happen.
You listen to your soul and the
Yeah,
marker, which was your father's passing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just so wild that, if you pay attention, you're conscious of those things. And at the time, like, I was kind of always into astrology, but I really hadn't gotten really deep into metaphysics or, any of that kind of stuff. So this is fascinating. We're going to talk about a lot more of this. You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will explore more with Carolyn Coleridge, licensed psychotherapist, intuitive, and healer. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. But before we continue, I want to make sure everyone knows how to contact me. You can find me at www.drdianehayden.com or either of my two publications, www.naturalnutmeg.com and www.essentialnaples.com. And you can learn more about Carolyn Coleridge at www.intuitivesoulhealing.com. That's spelled INTUITIVESOULHEALING.com, intuitivesoulhealing.com. So welcome back, Carolyn. We were talking about things that happen in your life, these particular years that are so important. And I was telling the story about how when I was 27, my father passed unexpectedly, and it completely changed the direction of my life in terms of what school I was going to go to for my doctoral program. And later on realizing, wow, like I'm much, Maryland was the place I was supposed to be. I'm much happier here. It also was the catalyst to end a relationship I was in that I wasn't feeling that he was the right person for me to be with. So it was kind of like a twofold thing. So tell us more about just these soul cycles.
Yeah. So a lot of our path is really through our heart. To me, our heart is the energy that goes to the other side. It's a portal to the divine. And I feel like we all have soul contracts, and we're all here to hit certain marks, just like somebody on a play has to hit a mark on the stage, and we're on the stage of life. So when your heart opens, that's when you find your soul's path. And through a death or a breakup, divorce or illness, this is how people find their callings usually if they listen to their heart. And it's hard because the heart, can be very in a lot of pain at that time. But it's really helped me as a therapist because a lot of people will seek me out at 27, which is the lunar return, or 29.5 to 31, which is the Saturn return. And I started to see a pattern. I said, oh, this is why the ghost came to me to get into this work so that I can tell people, no, you're not losing your mind. You're finding the divine, that people can easily think this is the worst thing that happens to me. But if we didn't have the negative experiences, we wouldn't look into our hearts and we wouldn't grow. And we're here to grow and learn. And some other markers, is so 29 to 31. A lot of people break up marriages, a lot of people move forward and they find different paths, listen to their heart. And that's where your soul's destiny is, in your heart. And we're here to finish that. Then 35, people start coming to me around that time, start thinking about different things on their path. The next one, 7 times 6, because the 7-year cycles is 42 changes. And then when it gets to 40, then it gets more intense as you get older. So 49, 7 times 7 is 49. To 51 is something called the Chiron or the Chiron return, where it's a time of the wounded healer. So usually at that time, people will start feeling really depressed. Like I started looking at my exes and finding out what they were doing and just, or, why did I get into healing? And it's a real deep soul searching. And if you know that you're supposed to look at things that are buried and what's underneath, just like the moon illuminates the dark sky. So the moon cycles and the soul cycles illuminate the darkness. You start to make different changes and heal. Now, women have periods every 28 days. The full moon is every 28 days. So women are really connected to these cycles. The word moon actually comes from the word menses. And when we incarnate on Earth and to matter, matter means mother. So we're going into the Mother Earth to learn, to heal, to grow. So we listen to her cycles and respect that energy of moon cycles. We start to heal and we make different decisions and we start to uncover, these things. And it might be eating different, like Mother Earth gives us great food and, that the crystals, the rocks are part of Mother Earth's, birthing. So it brings us back to our soul and to who we are as people. But it has souls in the human body. And then around 56, that's when I came back to Connecticut from California, really 55, but to really start, I came back to take care of my dad and he was ill. And it was just like I came back to center, came back where I started in Connecticut. And then, kind of like scanning your life, regrouping. And then the second Saturn return is 59.5 to 61. And a lot of people seek me out then. So if you have a spiritual healer or counselor or shaman that can help guide you into this is not the worst thing that can happen. These are part of your past, these difficult things that you need to overcome, like hurdles. And then you'll start to unravel your book of life, the Akashic records. You'll start to see that you were set up by your life tragedies that become triumphant and to push you like Dorothy in the Wizard of Oz. She met all these people that helped her, and then she feels like, oh, she had it all inside of herself. The same thing, we go deep within ourselves if we learn about soul cycles, and we don't feel as victimized, we feel empowered. Like, for example, when I saw that Will Smith hit Chris Rock on the stage, the first thing I was like, how old is he? 53. The second lunar return is 54. So he grew up in a DV household. So you go back to this was like the instinct. So that's the 54 is another, it's a lunar return. 27, 27 is 54. So it's also a time to look at family cycles because our family is part of the fabric of the soul contracts we come in to unravel or to heal or to grow from. Yeah.
Wow. It is fascinating. I'm in my head. I'm like, wait, so it's so funny because I just turned 56. So I'm like, ooh, what's she going to
Oh.
say about that?
Right, right. So 7 times 8. So it's
Yep.
getting strong now. Yeah.
Yep.
And Oprah started her network at 56. And I was like, oh, there it is, Soul Cycles. If you watch, Matthew Perry died at 54. That was his moon cycle. It's probably so if it's really deep, it's easy to like overdose. When I think about all those rockers at age 27 who most of them overdosed or suicided, they was probably like you're famous, everyone loves you, but you had your wounds to deal with. And it's so easy to take an extra hit or to just say, I can't deal with it. Because it can be very painful. I'm not saying
Mhm.
this stuff is easy. And, that's why I think there was a combination of, the therapy and me being a healer. To me, the mind is the therapy, the body is the energy healer, and the spirit is the intuition, listening to the divine and getting the messages about putting these cycles together with psychotherapy. Psyche means of the mind, psychic means of the soul. So they go together. Yeah.
Yeah. So when someone comes to see you, typically, what's it like to work with you? I mean, I know it's that's kind of a broad question. It's got to be dependent on
Mhm.
what are they coming to you for? Like what is it? Is it a crisis or is it just finding soul purpose or whatnot? But what kind of other modalities do you weave in and what would it be like for someone to work with you?
So if they come in as looking for a healing or a reading, for a long time that was one side. So that's I'm a intuitive reader, and then I'm a healer. So let's take that aspect because usually I don't mix the both. Because if I'm working at a clinic and they're coming in for psychotherapy, I stick with the modality of the company I'm with, etc. Now, I'll have a crystal or a chakra chart and I'll talk about it with them, but I don't want to scare people. People have to come just like to a healer when they're ready.
Mhm.
But on my website, you see it's all there. Like I do everything. So it's just so it can kind of open them up. Like I would always put like a crystal on my desk and like, oh, I love crystals. Well, let's open it up from there. Okay. So through insurance, that's one way. They come to me for a reading. I would, I meditate ahead of time. I ground into the mother. I open up my energy to the divine father. And then it's usually a reading, I'm clairvoyant. I see visions. So I get messages about their soul contracts. And usually they're like, wow, that's on point. That's what I was looking for. Or how did you know that? Or, ooh, like I just did an event in Westport and they're like, you're scaring me. Like you're going to an psychic. What do you expect?
Right.
So know, she's like, wow, I just never have talked about that. Or that's exactly what I was thinking about. Well, the guides hear the thoughts and I hear the thoughts from their guides. So, and I would help them, find out they're in a soul cycle. And I do something really other unique. Sometimes they need healing. There's one woman I was working with, was 57 and she was really depressed. And I did a read on her and it was just very accurate. And I said, you really need healing. You have so much energy stored up. She goes, I don't even know what it is. So I did the healing on her and she's like, oh my gosh, my second chakra really hurt and my stomach. And she said, I felt this immense pain the next day. And I was like, oh boy. And then she said, then I had this big release and I just felt lighter. So her energy was stored up in her body. And then she started becoming more creative and started doing more of her creative business full time, doing more of it. And so that's when it opens up her soul path. Um, and I also do something called theta healing, Theta, which is created by a woman named Viana Steibel, she's kind of amazing. She's I worked with her when she came to LA. It's like 50 of us in a room. She's from Idaho. I think she lives in Montana now. And she healed herself of cancer by commanding her body to heal. It's kind of deep. Her books are wonderful. She works only with the creator, which I loved, with God. And she helps to upgrade our DNA segments that have dormant energetic information. It's a meditative healing technique. And we will muscle test through kinesiology somebody's beliefs. So somebody said, I'm always dating the wrong person. I would test them like I deserve love. And if it's low, if they're weak, I was like, you don't believe it. Yes, I do. Well, your body's telling me I can't change your bodies. No. So then I said, do you want me to, this belief, by the way, the beliefs are soul level, past life, ancestry, and genetic. So this is again her modality. So it could be an ancestor's belief system. It could be your parents' programming. It could be a past life trauma. So then what I would do is I said, I give him, ask permission, can I change it? And then we just take a breath. I go up to God, we have this system, and then I change it. And then they muscle test them again. They're like, whoa, then their arms are strong. I am open. So when you change the body and the energy that's stored in the body, our muscles we can't lie to ourselves. So when we lie to ourselves, we get weaker and weaker. So we try to upgrade all the beliefs, worthiness, deservability. Your aura gets stronger and then you attract in what you want. And then they attract in new partners, they attract in new job opportunities, they become creative because we are in the Aquarian age, I believe, and we're supposed to create, and that's why there's so many startup companies, etc., because we want to be more like the creator, which is the divine, and the creatress, which is Mother Earth, which I also believe there's a divine mother. So that's what we're trying to grow to remember who we really are as souls. So again, I would do a reading and then sometimes the healing. I usually do it together. And also crystals. I believe Mother Earth births these wonderful rocks And they have the energy of think of the sun as like God's light coming down into the dark earth and then planting a seed. And over time, they become wonderful crystals, wonderful rocks, like I only like this, a crystal. And then they're made into little objects. But people can use them to help heal them because they have the energy of the earth and the energy of the divine. And I believe they have different vibratory rates that can really ground, and people feel drawn because we have crystalline energy within us. We have crystals in us, little quartzes in us, and so we are feeling drawn to things that we need, and the crystals kind of communicate. The Native Americans called them um the stone people, and they have vibratory energies, and that's why they wore turquoise, the Navajo, and red coral. God the Father is the blue, and Mother Earth was the red coral, because we're here to incorporate the loving Father and the Divine Mother to help us to heal. So I do believe, working and grounding your energy, and I usually do a layout and pick different crystals, and I help people to reintegrate and strengthen their spirit body, which holds their book of life. The word spirit means breath. So in our breath, in our spirit, there is the answers to a lot of your questions. So I help them to realize that they're a soul and to open up, and I can be a guide on that path. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned ancestral wound or ancestral, I forget the actual term that you said, but I'll just use it like an ancestral trauma or wound because literally I just had an energy session about that yesterday
Mm,
because my mother has had these it's not even really technically classified as arrhythmia, but I'm going to use that
mm,
term, like this irregular heartbeat, since she was in her 50s. And she's kind of a very, anxious, fearful person.
mm,
She believed in traditional medicine. She went, to all the doctors and the tests and blah, blah, blah. Ended up going on a medication for it, which pretty much has regulated it most of her life. Well, lo and behold, I'm like, 56, and in, the last year or two, I've started having some of those irregular heart rate issues. I'm like,
mm,
there is no way I'm not going on medication. I'm like, I know, I have had echoes and things like that done just to make sure there's nothing like physically wrong, which there isn't. So I thought to myself, I think that this is some type of ancestral thing that's passed down, and
mm,
literally went to a friend of mine who's an energy healer. And the difference that I felt after just one session and in going, doing the work and kind of uncovering and processing all that was amazing. I'm like, absolutely, that's exactly what it was. I feel like a different person actually
wow.
after like
Yeah.
this one session. It was amazing.
Yeah, yeah, because a lot start stored in our body, and the spirit is our healing activating part. So when we activate it, we can heal, and we've kind of missed this connection to ancestors. I know shamans do it. Every culture had it, but we've all kind of like run away from it or left it, and we got so much into ourselves and making money. But I believe our ancestors passed on the baton of what we're here to overcome and what we're here to learn. These are the paradigms, the soul contracts that we are here to do and to get over. So that makes sense. And yes, there's a great book called The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton. He's
Mhm.
a Hay House author, and about how our belief systems, kind of epigenetics, can affect the way we think, oh, I'm going to get this disease, and then we don't. I don't know how many people say you have diabetes, you have I was like, I do not have diabetes. My mother did, but I changed the script. I mean, so it's just interesting, and that's the old mentality of a lot of medical is like you have to get it, but we eat differently, we do differently, we know more. There can be shifts in that. So I 100% believe in that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And, like just different things we could, do from a spiritual perspective. We have different, when you say beliefs, like we could meditate. We have like, my lifestyle is completely different from hers. So when I look at it from like the perspective of just the physical aspect, I'm like, well, I didn't eat the way she ate. She was not an exerciser. I'm a big exerciser. She didn't meditate. I meditate. I'm like, there's no way that this is a physically inherited genetic thing. In my mind, my belief was this is absolutely some type of ancestral thing that has gotten passed down that I think for whatever reason, it came to me, but now I'm like, no, I'm breaking, whatever that pattern is.
100%, yes. Ancestors will give us, certain things to our tools and other things and ailments to overcome because we're shifting the DNA many times. And now that we're meditating, we're understanding how to change the DNA because we're getting conscious about our lives and who we are as souls. So that makes a
Exactly.
lot of sense. Mhm.
Exactly. So fascinating. We're going to get into a lot more with you for sure. You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. When we come back, we'll be talking more with Carolyn Coleridge, licensed psychotherapist, intuitive, and healer. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden, and I am talking today with Carolyn Coleridge. You can learn more about her at www.intuitivesoulhealing.com. So, when we were just talking before this last break, we were getting into discussion about just our ancestors and how they can pass down gifts. They can also pass down trauma, that kind of thing. And there was something that you wanted to tell the listeners, basically just about that. What was that?
Yeah, that now that again we're more aware of how the ancestors are, helping us in different ways. And ancient cultures used to always praise the ancestors, like that movie Black Panther talked about them going to the ancestor to get information. I think there's more information coming out because we're realizing that we're more of a soul and we're more global, that we're here to grow and learn and to move forward. And I also feel like we're changing ages, and we're in the Piscean age and we're moving into, well, we're already in the Aquarian age. So that's a cycle. So like with ancestors, that was a cycle too. So with the Aquarian age, we're here to create. That's what the Aquarian age is about, to be expansive and think differently. The Piscean age was more about the church. It had the symbol of the fish, teach me. And now we're the stage of I need to learn, I need to create on my own with the creator. So that's why my business is Conscious Creations, that we are creating with the creator our destinies instead of having people just teach us what we need to do. So when people are just teaching us, we lost the wisdom of the ancestors. We went to the churches, we went to the old, different things. We went to the medicines that were all, like kind of limited. There's such a square, there's such a structure when the Piscean age. The Aquarian age allegedly started in 2012. So December 2021, December 20th, 2012 was the end of the Mayan calendar. So it was a 26,000 year cycle that the Milky Way galaxy, we went through this huge, cycle with the dark ages. We're getting closer to the center of the galaxy. And in the center of the galaxy, that's the end of the 26,000 year cycle, the Hubble telescope had a picture of the galaxy, which looked like a yin yang symbol. So it's the balance of the male and female. And the balance of the male and female is what we are here to grow and learn, but the patriarchal system kind of overtook it. So it was out of balance. So we need that balance of receptive and assertive, male, female, etc. So the in the Aquarian age, what happened, the planet Venus, which is the planet of love, and our heart is where we find our soul's path through our hearts. That's what opens us up. So Venus went through an 8-year cycle from its position down the Milky Way galaxy to its high position that it ended in 2020. And 2020 was what? The pandemic, the breakdown of everything. So once Venus was there, people started working from home. They started creating. So again, the planets help push us into things. And even the word corona means crown. We are opening up to our crown chakra. We open up to ourselves as souls. So this 8-year cycle that the planet Venus went down was down the Milky Way galaxy, which is mother's milk. So it was really literally the opening of the divine feminine energy. And then divine feminine energy is about women to do what? They create life, they create children, the time of the creator. And this year we're in an 8-year, so it's even more intense. Now, an interesting thing about 2020, when everything crashed, everything closed down, where usually there used to be a 13-month calendar. Okay. So we changed it to a 12-month calendar for financial reasons, for other reasons. So the 13-month calendar means like with the beginning of civilization, which is they believe it's in Ethiopia, they're on a 13-month calendar. So when it was 2020, it really wasn't Ethiopia, it was 2012. So if we went around that calendar, we really would have been in 2012, which was the end of time as we know it. Isn't that interesting?
Fascinating. Wow.
Yes. So as we get back to this male-female balance, and by the way, the balance of the male-female opens your third eye. This was taught in mystery schools. So when you hear a message, the receptive, the feminine, and then you move forward, starting your business, that's the masculine. When you do it back and forth, you create this energy, your third eye opens, and you get more visions. So when the patriarchal system went kind of out of control, it kind of made everything off balance. So now we're bringing it back. The Me Too movement, a record number of women in Congress. We are on a female earth, but we don't always respect women. So it's like Bob Marley says, it's written in the book. We have to fulfill the book. So that's why, women are getting more power and everyone is starting to create more, but create from what? Their heart, you know? And women have, the round, the symbol of the circle, collective, everyone's involved, we need the masculine, we need that assertive energy, but a lot of people have it inside. So that's why things are shifting. And that's why now we're also getting more into our ancestors and we're waking up like, wait a minute, what did my mother do? Or what happened? What kind of belief system? Because we're shifting into more of a creative. So we're thinking with different parts of our DNA segments that were dormant during the time when others were teaching us what was right and what was wrong.
Yeah, that's fascinating. There was something you said. I'm glad you brought up DNA again, because I remember when you said this the first time, I wanted to reiterate because I think people might have missed this, that we do have the ability to change our DNA. And you mentioned briefly like doing that through meditation. So let's just talk about that for a minute, because I'm sure there's people that are like, what? That's impossible.
Well, I think with Beyond Stibel's theta healing, we're upgrading our DNA segments, and you can literally muscle test it. So that's one modality. When you're meditating, you really are. I always think of it as like so I have a meditation center, and I taught meditation for years at Measure HMO, and you open up different portals of your brain that were closed that may open up portals that are connected to the ancestors, to ancient wisdoms, to your past lives, to creative abilities, to dreams. So the more we sit quiet and we're in the present, what happens is that we can easily go to the realm of spirit because spirit lives in a peaceful energy of being present. And then present is the word gift. So then we connect to our heart and we are given gifts in our hearts by the divine. And when we have gifts, we must open them up. So the quieter we become, we get more connected to our divine destiny because we are getting our downloads from the Akashic records from the other side, why we came here. Like deja vu, that's just remembering, oh, I read that in the book of life, and I'm seeing a piece of it to follow. That's why I think it's so important, synchronicity and signs, that you pay attention working with the universe. You listen to that inner wisdom. But the more you meditate, some people can, get high off of meditation if you can go to that right space. I do Zen meditation still with a woman from Okinawa, 9:30, 6:30 in LA there. And you just feel a sense of high. And if we can get quiet and still, we can go to the other realms, which is a sense of high, and that we can open up different portals and activate and clear the old DNA programs that were holding us back and connect to newer ones that are lie dormant because we're so busy doing. We are human beings. We're not human doings, but we forgot about the being part. We're just running around doing. So we can't get quiet and listen to the truth within our own selves.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That is so true. Like a lot of us are, I think we live from here, like the neck up. It's all about what's going on up here and like how much more can we accomplish and what we have to do and the list and this and that and the other thing. But yeah, I love what you're saying. So I want to make sure we touch on some of the client successes that you've had because you have an amazing video up on your website that everybody should watch. And what you did with that girl was just wild. So I don't know if you want to tell her story, if there's other stories that you just want to tell that, you think have really impacted you in terms of like what's happened for someone when they've worked with you or done healing, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, I'll talk briefly about that story. That was when I was working at UCLA as a healer. So we are in LA. So that was on CNN actually. So I was on CNN with Lisa Williams, who was had a TV show, and then also Judith Orloff. So it was the three of us. And I was so nervous because they were so huge. There was a cute little diary. I said, "Well, you want to be on television?" So I went to her house in Orange County, and basically she came in there because she had this pain in her abdomen. They didn't know what it was, and we would find we had different it was a complementary alternative medicine program at UCLA. They call it CAM. So there were energy healers. I was the only healer actually. There was a craniosacral, there was a meditation teacher, there was therapists and other, acupuncturists. So I was doing healing on her and I could not move past her stomach area, and it was over her stomach and it was like a block. And I told her mom, like, there's a block right here. And she had gone to like many, many, many doctors, and they didn't know what she was a diver. They didn't know what was wrong with her. So her mother went back to the doctors and look right here, and they found a pancreatic divisum, a rare condition that was genetic, but that made her like it just like the energy couldn't get through the pancreas, and it just killed her. It was like her pain was like a 10 and 11. So they found that, and then the information, the medicines, a little bit of stuff they've worked with her, she was able to function. And she actually became a therapist. I was so shocked because she wanted to be a
Really?
neuroscientist. Yeah, she's a therapist now. She's a lot
Wow.
older. That was an old video. I still hear from her every once in a while. She's doing amazing. Yeah, because it was really traumatic. And people thought she was at one point, drug seeking, narcs, but her pain levels was like astronomical. So like 11. So that was one that's Courtney. And I always say, you still want that video up there? She goes, oh no, it's fine. I'm doing great.
Oh,
Yeah. And I still hear from the mother every once in a while because that was a real shift in bringing in alternative health into, medicine, into traditional medicine. Another client I worked with when I was working on Wall Street in EAP was an older African American woman. And she was really depressed. And I was a new therapist. And she was so depressed that she felt suicidal. And it was around August. So around August, most of the psychiatrists and everyone leaves, the city to go to, all the different places you go, Cape Cod, etc. So the Hamptons. So and she told me she was an alcoholic, she was gay, she's an African American woman, and she was a victim of violent crime, a DV survivor. And because she protected herself in her home, her husband, she got jailed. That happens in the South quite often. She got jailed because her husband, yeah, like, really beat her up, whatever. So anyways, it was horrible. She had all these things. And I knew with all those different markers or levels, she was an old soul. So I didn't know what to do. So she had a whole plan what she's going to do to take her life. And I was so nervous. So I asked Spirit, and I just done a Reiki one. And I said, send her a symbol. So I sent her the chokore. I sent her a symbol without moving my hands. We're in therapy and she's planning everything, writing her, suicide letter. And through telepathy, I just sent her the symbol and she's like talking and I can't stand it. She said, what was that? I said, I sent you. She says, I feel peace. I said, I sent you a symbol. She took a deep breath in and out and she's like, I feel so peaceful. And then she started different. She goes, well, I have a great partner and I have done great things about she her whole dialogue changed. And I was like, whoa, that was amazing to me. And then we contracted for safety. She was fine. I continued to see her. And that's why I realized I have to incorporate spirituality into mental health. I cannot not do it. So that was, two great stories. And there's many others. I have a lot of testimonials on LinkedIn, which I'm surprised. People are just, oh, well, because it's such a public site,
yeah.
and yeah, they've had like 100 testimonials, but it's really my situation though is, and everyone's, is really being humble and listening to spirit because it's really not me. And I've been through my own tragedies. It's in my book, Honor Your Spirit. Almost got killed in a hospital. And that made me humble, these experiences so that you can be more open to spirit because spirit does not and ego do not what they not play well together. So the more humble you are, the more that energy can come in, the more I could be a conduit of light for others. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. Wow. What an amazing story. That's
Yeah.
just, and you hear things like this. It's like, oh my God, for whatever reason, something happens, like someone is going to take their life and then something intervenes. Like it's
Mhm.
literally just, these amazing things that happen. And I think if the person is, aware of it, they manage to just click and it all changes. It all changes.
Yeah.
So that is really awesome. Um, so we just have a few minutes till we finish up for today. Tell us a little bit about how people can connect with you and what classes you offer, anything that you want about your great center in Bloomfield.
Yeah, thank you. So, you can connect to me on my website at this point because something's weird with Facebook and Instagram. I'm usually on Instagram, but I have some kind of hacker going on. So, I my website, intuitivesoulhealing.com or Conscious Creations Connecticut at gmail.com. And I am on Insight Timer. I've read regular meditations. There's a lot of free meditations, grounding and protecting Insight Timer app. And I have some classes on there, how to clear your energy field, how to find your purpose that you can listen to. And this weekend, I'm doing a class on oracle reading. I feel like there's many ways the divine gets to us. And then I'm doing a trauma group, a spiritual trauma group. And I'm also doing an intuitive development series. I work with a lot of women and men to open up your intuition, to just trust your messages in the language of your soul. So that would be in May. And I'm doing another class. So look for my classes on Saturdays here and then also online. And my website, we have updates on a lot of different things. And I'll be in California in April, mid-April. Just go back and say hello to some people. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And obviously you work virtually as well. I want to make sure people know that, right? So
Yes.
people can definitely, work with you from a virtual perspective. If they're not local to Connecticut or California, they can just reach out to you and book sessions that way.
Yeah, I have people all over the Europe and everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, that is awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think this has been fantastic. I have loved, just learning everything about you. And I think, people will be fascinated by this show for sure, and hopefully reaching out to you. It's been great.
Thanks for having me. This has been wonderful. Yeah, and I love the magazine, so I'm honored to be on. I really was excited to do this today.
Oh, good, good, good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad. Yeah. So again, people can learn more about you at www.intuitivesoulhealing.com. You can learn more about me at my magazines, naturalnutmeg.com or essentialnaples.com. And my personal website is drdianehayden.com. Thank you again, Carolyn. And I want to thank all of you for tuning into the Dr. Diane Show. Please join me the first and third Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. Next time in the show, we'll be discussing more about the power of thoughts and beliefs and the impact they have on your life. Have a great week, and I'll see you back here next time. Thank you for tuning into the Dr. Diane Show, revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. Tune in every Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern on transformationtalkradio.com. Center your thoughts on what you want and shut the door on every suggestion of fear, worry, or lack from your own consciousness or the consciousness around you. Once you master that, everything is possible. To learn more about me, Dr. Diane, and receive a free digital subscription of my magazine, visit naturalnutmeg.com.